think if any automaker came up with a high quality, affordable electric vehicle, they're going to have buyers for it. And right now, there's just too many automakers that don't have any affordable vehicles because we've largely removed small cars.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Headlines in the EV space are starting to sound a little gloomy. And the main question is this: why are automakers hitting the brakes on EV production? It seems like early adopters have made the switch, but now the industry is facing a slowdown as mainstream buyers who are more practical and price conscious, such as myself, aren't jumping into it just as fast. And that's a huge problem right now for automakers who've invested billions of dollars, especially since electric cars are still priced way higher than their gas-powered counterparts. I'm going to show you the state of two channels here in Canada, and you'll be surprised how the news is spinned to people who have absolutely no idea what's going on. I encourage all those to take the time out, get off social media, look, listen, analyze, and learn what is going on around you. And with that said, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you have to leave before the end of this video, please hit that thumbs up. Algorithm will really appreciate it. Let's get into this first feature from CHCH News here in Canada.
Canada's investment into electric vehicle production has appeared to hit the brakes again after a planned battery plant stopped construction over market and sales concerns. Belgian company Umicore was set to have its project in a small town near Kingston, where hundreds of jobs were set to be created. Jason Gaidola joins us live with the details on this tonight. Jason.
Good evening, Matt. The plant in Loyalist Township was previously expected to begin production in 2026 and create around 600 jobs. But the company is putting things on halt due to, quote, a significant worsening of the EV market. The news sparked a reaction from the mayor of the southeastern Ontario town, expressing his concerns for his community that was prepared to welcome the plant. Despite the billions of dollars of public subsidies from the Trudeau and Ford governments, it's not the only EV project that has seen a delay. This past year, Ford Motors opted to delay the production of electric SUVs at its Oakville assembly plant from next year to 2027. Manufacturing experts suggest many Canadian consumers aren't yet to transition to electric vehicles due to concerns that include anxiety over the range it could drive, lack of charging infrastructure, and of course, affordability.
Well, before he goes any further, and it's funny that he brought up Ford, because just recently Ford said they're going to prepare manufacturing in Chennai, India, and to focus on exports for the global market, as says here from their own website, Ford Media Center. And just to read a synopsis, and this is September 13, 2024, when Ford today announced that it has submitted a letter of intent, LOI, to the government of Tamil Nadu, confirming its intention to utilize the Chennai plant for manufacturing for export. Just to tell you exactly what's going on, it's not profitable operating here in the United States, and like their counterparts in China, they are trying to find ways and means how to reduce cost, and that's what it's all about. Manufacturing electric vehicles is no easy feat, and what they're trying to do is revolutionize 100 years of an invention. It took us over 100 years to actually get to where we are now with the gas-powered vehicles, in terms of improving innovation and everything else in terms of the technology, in order for people to kind of like enjoy the little comfort in life, what they worked hard for. And then in a 360-degree turn, here comes the government with their EV mandate. Let's continue.
I think if any automaker came up with a high quality, affordable electric vehicle, they're going to have buyers for it. And right now, there's just too many automakers that don't have any affordable vehicles because we've largely removed small cars from the lineups, at least of some companies. And when somebody can crack that code, which probably involves getting the supply chain well organized and operating at a really high level.
And it's really sad that they're only talking about this now. But when the government actually made that announcement, there was no uproar telling them that it won't work in terms of these strategies. You can't allow politicians to go ahead and make these decisions woefully that will actually affect an entire industry. You're talking about massive job losses currently happening because the automakers will want to find a way how to keep costs down. But as it says, we're probably barking up the wrong tree right now. Let's finish this video.
That's, I think, when we're going to see, that affordability sort of.
A study published by J.D. Power, a company that tracks consumer data, reported in May that 72% of Canadians said they were very or somewhat unlikely to consider an EV as their next purchase. That percentage was 67% in 2023 and 53% the year before.
But let's face it, taxes, tariffs, and the political decision play a massive role here. For example, Canada imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs to protect the local production. And the goal is to build an EV industry at home. But these policies means less competition and higher prices only for the buyers. And with inflation and rising interest rates, many consumers are holding off because of the sticker shock. Now, for example, a Toyota RAV4 cost about $36,000, but an EV like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, that's will set you back approximately $57,000. Now look at that vast comparison. So it's not just consumers feeling the pinch. Projects like the Belgian EV battery plant, as he mentioned, have been put on hold, and even big names like Ford are delaying production because of their electric SUVs, which is going to come in at too much of a high price, and you don't have the market to actually purchase those vehicles. And this comes despite billions of dollars in subsidies from government trying to speed up the EV transition. Let's take a look at the second video.
The headlines about electric cars have been gloomy lately.
The company is shifting its EV strategy.
They say car makers are reversing course on building EVs.
It could be a tough year for selling EVs.
And customers are losing interest in buying them.
But many experts insist the future is still electric. Here's why.
5 years ago, barely any
fair use, and I can't do much about the music here. And this is the CBC actually in Canada. And remember, they don't take comments. The comment sections are always off on most, if not all, their videos. But please feel free to comment right here. Let's continue.
one buying a new car in Canada chose an EV. Fast forward to today, and zero-emission vehicles make up nearly 13% of the market, a record high. While it's not a straight line up, it's clear that sales are still growing, just not as quickly as expected.
So where are we at in the transition to EVs?
Yeah, I'd say we've definitely passed the early adopter phase.
JD9 tracks the auto sector for market research company JD Power. He says most early adopters, who rush to buy new technologies, have bought into EVs.
The next step, though, is to convince a much wider swath of Canadians that electrification is right for them.
That mainstream buyer is less wealthy and more practical. In a JD Power survey, many Canadians said EVs are still too expensive. They also worry about how far they can travel and how difficult it will be to charge the battery.
Because the EV market was always a niche market started by Tesla. If you're above a particular income bracket, then you'll have no problem affording an electric vehicle. But now that other manufacturers are into the market, and then you want to grow your EV market share by more than 50% by a particular year, it means more people will have to go into a particular income bracket, which doesn't make sense. And here's the kicker. The federal EV mandate, they're still pushing forward. So by 2035, all new car sales in Canada are expected to be zero emissions. But without tackling the cost and charging infrastructure, this target will be be a very long shot. Let's continue.
If I make a mistake buying an EV or it doesn't suit my lifestyle, I mean, that's a $65,000 problem.
That could explain why sales of plug-in hybrids are revving up. These models run on both battery power and gasoline, a good compromise for customers concerned about range and charging, and less risky than going all electric. It's a trend that has car makers shifting gears.
Back in 2021, car makers were investing billions of dollars in EVs and pledging that they would stop building gas-powered cars. But customers aren't going fully electric as quickly as predicted. And with most manufacturers still losing money on EVs, it's no surprise that they're making some adjustments.
This year, GM said it will build fewer EVs. Ford plans to invest more in hybrids. Volvo is delaying plans to go all electric by 2030. Despite all that, car makers insist they're still committed to the cause.
We'll be ready to go fully electric this decade, but if the market, infrastructure and customer acceptance is not quite there, we can allow that to take a few more years.
For those customers hoping overseas car makers like China's BYD would bring cheaper EV models to North America, that may take longer too, after the federal government slapped 100% tariffs on Chinese-made EVs to give a jolt to domestic manufacturers.
Let me pause right there and look at this article from the Business Insider that says Ford CEO and CFO took a drive in a Chinese EV, and what they said next reveals a lot about the state of the US auto industry. When you say US, just say North America and done, because they also set up shop here in Canada and elsewhere. I will actually throw Europe in that part of it, but let's read the highlighted headlines. It says Ford CEO Jim Farley and CFO John Lawler took a test drive in a Chinese electric SUV in early 2023. Both men were shocked and impressed by the quality of the Chinese-made electric vehicle. Jim, this is nothing like before, Lawler told Farley. These guys are ahead of us. Ford's C-suite executives were left humbled by China's electric vehicle makers after taking a test drive in a Chinese-made EV last year, the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday. China was way ahead of them. Our EV mandate actually came too late, but not necessarily too late. What they never realized and failed to strategize was that research and development was actually needed before the EV mandate went fully headstream. China knew exactly what it was. Again, best practices benchmarking. The vital minerals that are needed for electric vehicle production were only found in certain countries. And China already went ahead and already set up trade cooperation systems with these particular countries, and that's as easy as it is. I think we're too far apart from the rest of the world, and we have lost our sense of communication, humanity, and everything else. We have become divisive, and it is one of the reasons why a lot of countries are moving ahead without the Western regime. Let's continue.
We are building an EV industry here. We have all of the ingredients for Canada to succeed in this sector. I'm convinced we'll continue to see a growth in EV adoption, but we do have to address some of those barriers to demand.
In Canada, our target is that 100% of all light-duty cars and passenger truck sales be zero emission by 2035.
The federal government is using mandates to speed up the transition, pushing car makers to build EVs so there's more supply. The policy says by 2026, 20% of all new cars sold should be zero emission. By 2030, that target jumps to 60% and 100% by 2035.
Ottawa is also trying to sweeten the deal for buyers. All Canadians can get up to $5,000 back if they choose a zero-emissions vehicle. And depending on where you live, you could get even more. Quebec is the most generous, offering an additional rebate of $7,000. So it's no surprise that EV adoption there is soaring. There are also incentives available in the Atlantic provinces, Manitoba, BC, and the Yukon.
You can drive much farther in an EV these days. Most have a range of 300 kilometers or more, and new charging infrastructure is being built every day. The biggest barrier to adoption seems to be the upfront cost, which often gives mainstream buyers sticker shock.
RAV4, which runs on gas, costs about $36,000. Compare that to the electric Hyundai Ioniq 5, with a price tag of more than $57,000. A recent government report says to spark consumer demand and meet federal targets, overall costs of EVs must drop more than 30%.
Before she goes into that part, the overall cost of EV should drop 30%, but it also comes at a cost. It comes at a cost, especially here in the automaker, the auto manufacturing sector, where jobs are being lost. In the latest round of job losses, GM lays off more than 1,000 salaried software and service employees. In this article here from CNBC, and this is only recently, and this is because this is August of this year. And the key points here I'm reading: GM is laying off more than 1,000 salaried employees globally in its software and services division following a review to streamline the unit's operations. The layoffs include roughly 600 jobs at General Motors' tech campus in near Detroit, and the job cuts represent 1.3% of the company's global salaried workforce of $76,000 as of the end of last year. And this 1.3% goes a long way because everybody else is affected from these individuals who have families and other financial obligations to uphold. So it goes a long way. So while the government is actually trying to streamline the EV adoption elsewhere, then there's also the ripple effect that comes with it. But funniest thing about all these layoffs happening, these are only white collar workers. So you will not hear any uproar about it. If it were the blue collared workers inside the plant, then you'll have the pitchfork and the fires and the picket lines walking around, and then you'll have the union head on TV giving big speeches, and also on top of that political platform. So again, we talk about the big divide. Why is it that when white collar workers are being let go, you don't have so much of an uproar such as certain categories of workers elsewhere? Then that's why, again, the big divide. Let's continue.
From price, what do you think would make a big difference to persuading Canadians to switch to an EV?
I think it's important to note that 50% of Canadians have never even sat in an EV. A lot of Canadians today just don't know what they don't know about EVs. Between manufacturers, policymakers, lobby groups, that's going to be one of the big tasks in the next couple of years.
So while the road to electric vehicles has hit some speed bumps, car makers haven't abandoned them, and customers might just be waiting for them to get a little cheaper. For now, the future is still electric, though the journey will take a little longer.
So while the EV mandate here is being pushed by our Western regime, you have companies like UI are shaking up the luxury EV market over there in China with luxury cars like the i2 M9. Most of us are still waiting for a truly affordable, reliable option. Until then, many consumers might just stick with hybrid cars or gas-powered cars a little longer until they try to sort things out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you go all in on an EV right now, or are you willing to hold off a little much longer? As usual, share your thoughts. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Parts Manager Guide. Please smash that like button on your way out. It'll only take you 1.5 seconds to do so. Until next time.